Hello, brothers and sisters. Today is October 22nd, year of our Lord, 2021. And today we're going to talk about this report upon compulsory education. Mr. Dexter A. Hawkins, chairman of the Committee on Education of the New York City Council of Political Reform, has prepared a report upon compulsory education, the result of careful study and collation of information from many sources, and presenting many most interesting and important facts. The report maintains that universal education is essential to free government, that, conscious of this truth, every free state has established a system of free schools, and that self-preservation imposes upon our government the duty of requiring the education of the people, that there may be an intelligent exercise of the suffrage. From Mr. Hawkins' survey, it appears that the national government has already given 140 millions of acres of the public lands to aid education, and it is now proposed to devote the entire proceeds of the public lands yet undisposed of to the same purpose. And the government has established a permanent Bureau of Education. The magnitude of the national school interest is suggestive. There are more than 14.5 million of school children in the country, and 221,000 teachers, and the annual expense for schools is more than $95 million. Now, this is in 1874. Today's money, $95 million, will be worth $2,285,916,666.67 today. That's a good chunk of money, wouldn't you agree? Let's see, where were we? In the state of New York, there are 1,500,000 school children, 28,000 school teachers, 12,000 schoolhouses, and 1 million volumes in the school libraries. The school property of the state is worth $24 millions, and it is improved at the rate of $2 millions annually. The school law lays a tax of 1 mil and a quarter upon each dollar of valuation of taxable property, which realizes $2.5 million. But the people voluntarily tax themselves 4 times this sum, making the whole amount annually spent upon the schools in the state $10 millions. The city of New York has last year more than 230,000 public school pupils. It employed 3,000 teachers and spent for public instruction $3,300,000. The report declares that the American doctrine is that the property of the state shall educate the children of the state, and that public education is public economy. The city of New York pays more to restrain and punish a few thousand criminals who become such mainly from the want of education than to educate the 230,000 children. This is in 1874. Today, New York still spends more on inmates than it does on students, by the difference of $46,989. So just throwing that in there. Statistics are eloquent upon the intimate connection of ignorance and crime. In France, from 1867 to 1869, one half the inhabitants could neither read or write, and this half furnished 95% of those arrested and 87% of those convicted of crime. In our 6 New England states, only 7% of the inhabitants over 10 years of age can neither read or write, and this small minority commits 80% of the crime. In New York and Pennsylvania, the ignorant person commits 7 times the number of crimes that one who can read and write commits. In the whole country, the proportion rises to 10 times. The study of statistics shows that it is the school rather than the church that restrains crime. Okay, let's fact check that really quick. This is the U.S. literacy rate from 1860. As you see, it's went down pretty steadily from about the time of when that newspaper was published. This is the poverty rate. And as you can see, the poverty rate goes up, then down, then up, then down, then up, then down. Even though the literacy rate has had a steady drop, the poverty rate varies. Goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay. Now that you've seen that, we'll go back to what they were writing here. In 1870, this question was especially examined in Bavaria, and with this result. And it's got the places here, different parts of Bavaria, and got the number of churches in each part, the number of schoolhouses per 1,000 buildings, and here's the crimes committed per 100,000 souls. And this is in 1874, and they're giving you statistics here from a different country to push through something here in America. Why not give statistics in this country? But anyway, moving on here. The same study shows that, other things being equal, as education increases, pauperism decreases. Now, is this true? We just looked at that. Looks like more than education has to do with it. Like maybe the bills passed in Congress, the economy, the purchasing power, the dollar. There's a lot more. I think it's pretty easy proven that that's not the only thing. But anyway, thus in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Illinois, 1 of 10 illiterate persons is a pauper, while the rest of the population there is but 1 pauper in 300 persons. As the chief expenses of government arise from crime and pauperism, which invade the order and justice which it is the function of government to maintain, the extirpation of ignorance is one of its first duties, and since it provides the means of education, it must require that the end be attained. The results of a compulsory system elsewhere are familiar to all students of this subject. In General Hazen's work upon the school and the army in Germany and France, he says plainly, it is compulsory education of children which make the German army so effective. Wherever it has been thoroughly tried, it has become a fixed policy. In this country, Boston has had such a law for 20 years, and in the last 10, it has reduced truancy from school 60%. New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Michigan have adopted it, so has the City of London in England, where the power is discretionary. The necessity in the state is seen in the fact that the average attendance upon the public schools is only about 1/3 of the whole school population, and upon all schools, public and private, only 1/2. Public education, of course, should be secular from the Constitution, for the Constitution properly forbids any favor to any form of religious faith. Religious education should be left to the churches. This, which is the original American doctrine, has been unquestioned by any sect until the growth of one chiefly composed of citizens of foreign birth, and whose chief until recently was a foreign ruler. The sect, the Roman Church, under the direction of a foreign authority, which has been unlawfully fostered at the expense of the state, demands parochial instead of public schools. In other words, that the public money shall be divided among the sects, and education be entrusted to sectarian clergymen. This parochial system is old in Europe, especially in Spain and Italy, and its results are familiar. It produces a few highly educated and a mass of ignorant inhabitants, with a large pauper and criminal class, a low morality, superstition, and tendency to despotism, with national stagnation. Yeah, we'll look into that here in just a second. The results of the two systems may be seen also in this country. There are 5.5 million of foreign born inhabitants, mainly from countries like England and Ireland, where the parochial system has prevailed, and they may be considered a fair average product of that method. The facts of comparison are shown in this table. And you got the different systems, the illiterates right here, the paupers, the criminals, and the inhabitants. It's not saying where it's getting these statistics, but this is what it's showing to us. Thus, this sect demands that the American system of non-sectarian, free public schools shall be replaced by parochial system, which produces 4 times as many illiterates, and we'll fact check that here in a second, 2.5 times as many paupers, and more than twice as many criminals as ours. Such facts and considerations seem to the committee to demonstrate the necessity of a compulsory law. And the report concludes with recommending a resolution to that effect. The report of Mr. Hawkins is a very valuable contribution to this most important discussion. Okay, let's go back over here. So this is the poverty rate. It's from 1990 to 2020. This is the U.S. literacy rate. Steady decline. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay, we've established that. Here we have the homicides from 1625 to 1900. Over here you got your per 100,000 people. These are the areas. These are the years. 1874. So about right here is where we're starting. So you see slight decline after this. Then we go to 1900. Murders per 100,000. Sorry about that. Okay. So it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Then you get a good drop in the 1940s to the 1960s. Then it skyrockets in the 70s. Goes up and down, and then it's been dropping, somewhat steadily here from the 90s to now. Here's the incarcerated Americans, the number of millions from 1920. It goes up, and then it hits 70s and 80s and skyrockets. And ever such a slight drop here from about 2010. And here we got the number of hate crimes, religious hate crimes. These are the Muslim, the no religion other and unknown. And then this little part here is over here. And of this little part, only 200, like what, about a quarter there is Christian. So it's not the Christians that are creating a whole bunch of the crime. Here we have the church membership, how it has steadily dropped from about the 1870s since this compulsory education has been mandated. Steadily dropped. Here's the number of Americans in jails and prisons since school prayer was banned in 1963. Pretty steady to right here, and then it goes way up. People were still going to school, it's just they were taking out prayer. Here's the immigration. Immigration has went way up. Number of immigrants. Here's the percentage of private public teachers who say these students' behaviors are serious problems in their schools. Now, they say the way that they act in school is going to reflect their adulthood, right? Well, looks like the public schools have a lot more problems than the private schools. Here's the SAT scores. The red is the public schools, the blue is the religious, and the green is all private. So it looks like public schools are underperforming religious schools by a lot. And then all private schools, they're outdoing the public schools as well. Here's another graph. It goes into detail. The blue is the public, the red is the private. Public schools getting smoked by the private schools in pretty much everything. Here's just some more factors about how it's not really the household income that affects it. It's the type of schooling. And you can pause and read that if you wish. Here's math and verbal scores from 2001. Once again, the private schools and the religious private schools and the homeschooling, pretty much all other forms of schooling outdo these private schools. Here's achievement versus parents' education. The public schools compared to the homeschooling. Homeschoolers always do better. And we were talking about crime. Maybe Maybe the amount of pistol packing people in the state who can defend themselves, maybe that has something to do with it. You know, the amount of crimes committed, just maybe. And we'll leave this video today with a quote from Henry Ford. It says, "A man's real education begins after he has left school. True education is gained through the discipline of life." Well, guys, as your independent fact checker, I would have to say that Mr. Hawkins, that wrote that article, was wrong. I think compulsory education, public education, paid for by the taxpayers, would have been better off if they would have left it the way it was. I think all the graphs I showed you today show you that. I think this is a no-brainer. I think the schools nowadays are nothing more than indoctrination stations. And tell me what you feel. I'd like to know your thoughts about that article. Was it propaganda? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Do you think I left out anything? Do you have anything to add? Questions, comments, death threats? Leave it in the comment section. Till next time, God bless.